Hi everyone, quick review of Seroquel. That's the brand name actually, but the actual name is Quetiapine, if I pronounce that correctly. From this company, it's called KRKA. These are empty ones. Never heard of it, but it's not the official brand name Seroquel, but it's the exact same active ingredient, the substance causing the effect Quetiapine. So I've been prescribed 25 milligrams of quetiapine a night for sleep, mainly called sleep onset insomnia. Overall, I would say it really works well, especially if you look at the risks of taking something else like a benzodiazepine for sleep. These are horrible drugs because your brain, in this case my brain, will very quickly, I still have to take these sometimes because I'm tapering off high doses of benzodiazepines. But your brain will very quickly develop a dependence to benzodiazepine and also somewhat of a psychological addiction. This is more so the case with the fast-acting benzodiazepines such as Xanax. But the Seroquel, the Quetiapine, although you do absolutely build some form of dependence, but this 25 milligrams a night, sometimes I take 75 milligrams after a major alcohol and nose candy binge for 2 days straight. It also works. This is the best thing you can take to block the receptors that, for example, stimulants stimulate. So if you're on a major cocaine or methamphetamine, or you've been taking psychedelics, taking something like quetiapine, not medical advice, I'm not a doctor, taking something like quetiapine, an antipsychotic, is the best way to mitigate and to sort of stop or slow down the damage being done by excitotoxicity to your brain. But back to the point. If you keep taking this, not medical advice again, but I take this 25 milligrams every single night, it still works about the same as when I first started taking it. I definitely would say yes, if you miss a day, it's a little bit harder to fall asleep, but it's not nearly as bad as missing, for example, a day of benzodiazepines if you've been taking those for a long time. Not if you've been taking benzos for only, a couple of days or maybe 2 weeks, but if you've been taking benzos for months and you miss a benzo dose, you will feel that absolutely you will feel like that. It will feel very similar to an alcohol hangover, alcohol withdrawal, because they both work on the GABA A receptor. But back to the quetiapine, I would say yes, it's very effective in making you feel more sleepy and thus making it easier to fall asleep. However, I haven't really noticed that, especially at the end of the night, that it helps me to stay asleep. But it really helps with the onset of sleep. And the reason that works, by the way, I have to say this, is that this is officially called quetiapine. It's officially from the class of antipsychotics, but under about 100 milligrams dose, right now I'm taking 25 milligrams a night, it mainly works by blocking histamine receptors rather than blocking dopamine, adrenaline, serotonin, acetylcholine, glutamate receptors. Because on high doses, this is what they use for major schizos. Sometimes they would use 1200 to 1500 milligrams of Seroquel a day, and I take 25. So this is purely meant for sleep onset insomnia, allowing you to sleep. But if you were to go above doses like 100 milligrams, then you're going to get the more scary type of things. Like that is actually used for psychosis and schizophrenia. Then you're also blocking the dopamine receptors, adrenaline, acetylcholine, the whole fucking all the systems in your brain that induce how do I say that, excitation. So that's the core difference, by the way, with these two things. So this is the benzodiazepine, this is the antipsychotic. What the benzos do is they increase inhibition in your brain, whereas the antipsychotics actually reduce activity, they reduce excitation. So they actually both achieve the same desired result, but one does it via reducing, the antipsychotics do it via reducing excitation, and the benzos do it via increasing inhibition. This is thus, that's just a simple rule of the brain, this is far less dangerous than the benzodiazepines. Because for reasons that are too long to explain right now, and I'm not a medical doctor and nobody probably gives a fuck, but your brain will very quickly adapt to the increased inhibition from the benzodiazepines rather than the reduced excitation from the antipsychotics. On to the last part, because of this video I didn't really prepare anything and I'm rambling way too much. Side effects, of course, side effects. So absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, even 25 milligrams of Seroquel, Quetiapine, what I take, will increase your appetite. And the antipsychotics do something worse that the SSRIs do, because the SSRIs antidepressants also increase your appetite, but the antipsychotics also modulate your metabolism in different ways. It will increase insulin resistance, so it will make you more likely to become diabetic. Yeah, it will also, of course, increase your appetite, but specifically increasing your appetite for sugary foods and for junk food in general. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, not only are you fucking making me more hungry, but you're also making me eat Taco Bell, and the toilet doesn't appreciate that. It also increases changes your lipid panel, increasing LDL, which is considered the bad cholesterol. Reduces supposedly HDL, the good, always have to use the air quotes. I don't know too much about lipids, but people are always complaining by saying that LDL, there's no good, there's no bad cholesterol. But the main point is, yes, it will make you eat more. Yes, it will make your metabolism more fucked up in a way that you're more likely to get diabetes, insulin resistance, your lipid panel will change, and there's something else, I forgot it. And then, but let's just move on to the second major side effect, or most important side effect, which isn't really a big deal for me, but it's drowsiness. Of course, it's next day, I wouldn't say grogginess. Grogginess is what you would get if you miss a benzodiazepine dose, or if you've been out drinking and then wake up the next day. That's when you're more groggy. But this causes more of like a feeling of slight drowsiness, dizziness, and sedation, because you have been blocking receptors. You know, like I said, 25 milligrams, mainly just histamine, but you have slight blockade of dopamine and acetylcholine, which could also mean that you have a slight reduction in neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. But if it helps you sleep more, then of course it has a net positive on your overall health. And that's the only reason I take this. Like, if this helps me sleep more significantly, then it's absolutely worth the potential negatives. And all the other, also, so those are the two main side effects that I've personally noticed, and most people notice: weight gain and drowsiness. And so a little bit of dizziness, sedation the next day after. But all the other bad stuff that happens, why people usually are afraid of antipsychotics, which I absolutely understand. But those side effects happen when people are taking ginormous doses of antipsychotics for major schizo lords. Not trying to be offensive, but if you're taking, there are people that are taking 50 times the dose, 30 to 50 times the dose I take every single day. That is when you can get things like permanent movement disorders. They used that in Soviet Union gulags. They gave people extremely high doses of antipsychotics so that then we'll get a permanent movement disorder where you just can't stop moving. It's called, what is it called again? Fuck, I should know that. I forgot what it's called. It's always like when I start recording, my mind goes blank, partly due to the self-consciousness and social anxiety. The blood flow goes from the prefrontal cortex to the amygdala. Anyway, akathisia, it's called. When you can't sit still and you have to move around. It was actually a torture method used in the Soviet gulags back in the day. But then, yeah, you have to understand when you're just taking Seroquel, Quetiapine for sleep, you have to understand the dose is so low. It is nothing comparable to what schizophrenias take, people with schizophrenia. Because their brain will actually shrink over the years. That's actually true, by the way. If you take significant doses of antipsychotics for years, maybe even just for months, your brain will reduce in overall size because you're blocking signaling. You are blocking excitatory signaling necessary to induce neurogenesis and growth of the brain in general. This is already 12 minutes, way too long. I hope it was helpful. Thank you for watching.